A cocky female black belt shoved a single dad just for fun, unaware he was a former Navy SEAL. Hello everyone, and welcome back. If you love stories about strong single dads, unexpected twists, and emotional endings, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Before we begin, let us know where you are watching from in the comments. We love seeing viewers joining us from all around the world. Thank you for being here. Now, let us step into today's story. 3 purses occupied the wheelchair space while Evelyn Parker waited beside the table, invisible to everyone around her. She had been there less than a minute, but that was long enough to understand how the evening was going to work. A woman in a red dress glanced at her, then moved an untouched gift bag into the last open space near the aisle. 2 men kept talking over her shoulder about donor numbers. A volunteer hurried past, stopped, and asked someone behind Evelyn, "Do you know who she's with?" Evelyn looked up. "You can ask me." The volunteer flushed. "Oh, sorry. I just thought, it's fine." It wasn't anger in Evelyn's voice. Anger took energy. This was something older, familiar. She adjusted one hand on the rim of her wheelchair and looked across the crowded multipurpose room. Northbridge Community School had dressed itself up for the fundraiser. White tablecloths, soft lights, small glass centerpieces made by students. A banner near the stage read, "Building a community for every child." Evelyn stared at it for half a second longer than she meant to. Then she noticed a man watching her from a table near the wall. Malcolm Hayes had come straight from work. He had changed his shirt, but there was still a pale streak of dust near one cuff. His 10-year-old daughter, Lily, sat beside him, pushing a fork through a piece of cheesecake like she was conducting an investigation. "Dad," she whispered, "I think this cake is older than me." Malcolm almost smiled. Then his eyes went back to Evelyn. He saw the blocked space, the bags, the people passing her without quite seeing her. He also saw something else. The way she held herself. Straight-backed. Calm. Not asking anyone to rescue her. Malcolm looked at the empty chair beside Lily. He stood, lifted it by the back, and moved it to the other side of the table, leaving a clear space beside them. He didn't walk over and grab the handles of Evelyn's chair. He didn't wave at her like she needed directions. He simply caught her eye. "Ma'am." Evelyn turned. Malcolm nodded toward the opening beside Lily. "We've got room, if you'd like." For a moment, she said nothing. Her eyes moved from Malcolm to the empty space, then back to his hands. They stayed at his sides. No reaching. No assumption. No performance. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Pretty sure," Malcolm said. Lily lifted her fork. "But I should warn you. The cheesecake is terrible." Evelyn looked at the girl, then at the mangled slice on her plate. A small laugh escaped before she could stop it. "That bad? I'm considering legal action." Malcolm shook his head. "She's been watching too much courtroom TV with my sister." Evelyn smiled again, this time without trying to hide it, and rolled toward the table. Malcolm shifted his coffee cup out of the way, but left the rest to her. She positioned herself beside Lily with practiced ease. "I'm Evelyn." "Malcolm." He nodded toward his daughter. "And that's my food critic." "Lily." The girl corrected him. "Professional food critic." Evelyn's phone vibrated against her lap. Once, then again. The screen lit with a calendar alert. Board call, 8 a.m. She turned it face down before Malcolm could read it. Across the room, the event photographer lifted his camera for another wide shot. Malcolm took a sip of black coffee, unaware that the woman everyone else had overlooked was the CEO behind the evening's largest sponsorship. As far as he knew, he had only offered a stranger a place at his table. Evelyn, however, was already beginning to wonder why that simple invitation felt different from every favor she had received all night. For the next few minutes, nothing remarkable happened, and that was exactly what Evelyn noticed. Malcolm did not ask why she used a wheelchair. He did not ask whether she needed help getting home. He did not lower his voice or speak to her with the careful softness people sometimes used when they had already decided she was fragile. He simply sat down and asked, "So, Evelyn, what did you think of the student choir?" She looked at him for a second. "I think half of them wanted to be somewhere else." Lily nodded immediately. "That is because they made them sing before dessert." Malcolm gave his daughter a look. "You have a very complicated relationship with dessert." "I have standards." Evelyn smiled again. It came easier this time. A server stopped beside the table and began pouring water. He placed Evelyn's glass near the centerpiece, several inches beyond where she could comfortably reach it without leaning. Malcolm saw it. Evelyn saw him see it. His hand moved toward the table, then stopped. "Want me to pass that over?" he asked. "Yes, please." He slid the glass toward her. No fuss. No apology for asking. No assumption that asking would offend her. "Thank you." Sure, that tiny exchange should not have mattered. But it did. Evelyn had spent years watching strangers make decisions about her body before asking what she wanted. Doors opened before she reached them. Chairs were moved without warning. Hands appeared on the back of her wheelchair as if the handles belonged to the public. Most people meant well. That was the complicated part. Good intentions could still take something from you. Lily reached for the breadbasket and paused. "Do you want one?" she asked Evelyn. Evelyn glanced at Malcolm. He had not prompted her. "I do." Lily handed her a roll. "Dad says you were supposed to ask first." Malcolm looked down at his coffee. "I say a lot of things." "You say that one a lot." Evelyn rested her hands lightly on the rims of her chair. "Your dad is right." Malcolm looked at her then, but there was something guarded in his expression, as if praise made him slightly uncomfortable. "Depends on the day." A burst of laughter rose from the table behind them. Someone called Malcolm's name from across the room, and he lifted 2 fingers in acknowledgement. Evelyn followed the gesture. "You work here. Facilities. Maintenance. Heating, cooling. Whatever starts making strange noises 10 minutes before an important event. So tonight must be your favorite kind of night." "I have had worse." Lily leaned closer to Evelyn. "He says that every time something breaks. Because something always breaks." Evelyn looked around the room again, but this time she saw more than polished tables and donor cards. She noticed the narrow spaces between chairs, the display stand blocking part of the aisle, the wheelchair area that had become storage because no one had thought twice about it. Malcolm had noticed those things before she had said a word. Another man approached their table, expensive suit, donor badge clipped neatly to his jacket. His eyes landed on Malcolm first, then on Evelyn. "Malcolm, right? I thought you were staff." Malcolm set down his coffee. "I am." The man nodded toward Evelyn without addressing her. "Is she with you?" Malcolm did not answer. He turned his eyes to Evelyn instead. "You can ask her." For the first time that evening, Evelyn did not feel overlooked. She felt defended without being spoken for. And that difference made her look at Malcolm in an entirely new way. The man in the expensive suit blinked, as if Malcolm had answered a question he had not expected anyone to challenge. Evelyn looked up at him. "Yes, I am sitting with them." Her voice was calm. Nothing more was needed. The man gave a quick nod, muttered something about enjoying the evening, and moved toward another table. Lily watched him leave. He was weird. Malcolm reached for his coffee. "Inside voice." "That was my inside voice." Evelyn pressed her lips together, trying not to laugh. Malcolm noticed, but he did not make anything of it. That, too, Evelyn noticed. A few minutes later, the same man passed behind them again and glanced at the small Northbridge Facilities logo stitched near Malcolm's cuff. "So you really work maintenance here?" he asked. Malcolm looked up. "Facilities. Heating, cooling, building systems. Whatever decides to stop working at the worst possible time. I thought employees had tables in the back." Lily immediately stopped eating. Evelyn felt something tighten in her chest. Malcolm did not. At least, not where anyone could see it. He placed his coffee cup down carefully. "I am also her dad." He nodded toward Lily. "Tonight, I am here with her." The man seemed to realize, a little late, how his words had sounded. "Of course, I did not mean anything by it." "I know." Malcolm's voice stayed even. "No performance. No need to win." The man left. Lily stared at her father. "You should have said something." "I did. Something mean." Malcolm gave her a look. "And what would that fix?" Lily pushed a crumb around her plate. "Nothing, probably." Probably. Evelyn had been watching his hands. They had never clenched. He had not smiled to hide the insult, either. He had simply refused to become smaller because someone expected him to. "Does that not bother you?" she asked. Malcolm looked at her. "It does." A short silence passed. "I just do not let every insult choose who I become." Evelyn's fingers stopped turning the ring on her right hand. Before she could answer, a low rattling sound came from the vent near the stage. Malcolm glanced upward. A staff member across the room caught his eye and pointed toward the hallway. "Excuse me," Malcolm said. "Apparently the building heard me talking about it." Lily groaned. "Dad joke." He disappeared through the side door and returned less than 10 minutes later, wiping a little dust from his fingers with a folded paper towel. The rattling had stopped. As he sat down, Evelyn looked toward the narrow aisle beside their table. 2 chairs had drifted outward, leaving barely enough room for her to turn comfortably. Malcolm saw it at the same moment. He moved his own chair inward and shifted the table 2 inches, opening the path without touching her wheelchair. Evelyn rolled through easily. "You notice things like that often?" she asked. Malcolm glanced around the room. At the crowded aisle. At the display stand jutting too far from the wall. At the bag still occupying the space where Evelyn had first stopped. When you spend enough years fixing buildings, you start seeing what people stop seeing. Evelyn followed his gaze. Meaning? Malcolm leaned back slightly. A building tells you who it expected to show up. For the first time that evening, Evelyn had no quick answer. Her eyes moved toward the sponsor banner beside the stage, where the name Parker Community Health appeared in clean blue letters. Malcolm followed her glance, then looked away without recognition. He still had no idea why that sentence had landed so heavily with the woman beside him. Evelyn kept looking at the sponsor banner long after Malcolm had turned back to his coffee. "If you were responsible for this room," she asked, "what would you change?" Malcolm gave her a cautious look. "You really want the list?" I asked. He glanced around again. Wider paths between the tables. Move that display stand away from the aisle. Keep the wheelchair spaces clear instead of treating them like extra storage. Evelyn followed his eyes. "Anything else?" Malcolm pointed toward the side of the stage. "That ramp works, but it is tucked behind the curtain. If somebody has to use a different entrance from everyone else, the building is already telling them something." Lily looked up from her plate. "Dad does this everywhere." "I do not. You complained about the grocery store doors for 20 minutes. Malcolm sighed. "Those doors are terrible." Evelyn laughed, and this time Malcolm smiled with her. It was not flirtation. Not yet. Just 2 people finding the same small thing funny. "Nothing dramatic," he said. "Most of it is just planning. You make space before someone has to ask for it." Evelyn rested one hand on the wheel beside her. "Would you say all of that to the people who paid for tonight?" Malcolm looked toward the blue Parker Community Health logo. "Probably not if I wanted another invitation." "So you would lie?" No, he took a sip of coffee. "I would wait until after dessert." Lily pointed at the cheesecake. "That might be crueler." Evelyn shook her head, smiling. Her phone vibrated again. She glanced at the screen this time, then silenced it. Malcolm noticed the movement, but not the name on the notification. He did not ask. Around them, the fundraiser was beginning to thin out. Parents gathered coats. Volunteers stacked programs. The photographer moved toward the stage, taking a few last wide pictures of the room. Malcolm stood when Lily started collecting her things. Evelyn adjusted her chair and turned toward the aisle. "Malcolm." He looked back. "Thank you." He glanced at the space beside the table. "For the seat." For not making it feel like charity. Something in his expression changed. Softer, but only slightly. "You should not need somebody to feel generous before you get to belong in a room." Evelyn held his gaze for a second. Then another. "Good night, Malcolm." "Good night, Evelyn." Lily waved. "Good luck with future cheesecake." "I will need it." Malcolm and Lily headed toward the coat rack. Evelyn watched them go until the crowd moved between them. Later that night, she sat alone in her condo with her laptop open and the city glowing beyond the windows. She should have been reviewing a staffing report. Instead, she pulled up the floor plan for the new West Side Community Clinic. Reception desk. Waiting area. Meeting rooms. Main entrance. For the first time, she stopped looking at the drawings like a chief executive checking a project. She looked at them like the woman who had spent 10 minutes beside a crowded table with nowhere to sit. Her cursor moved slowly across the screen. One doorway. One narrow turn. One room at a time. The next morning, Malcolm was halfway through checking an air handler at Northbridge when his phone rang. Principal Rebecca Cole was calling. "Malcolm, can you come to my office at 9:30? He looked at the time. "Is something wrong?" There was a short pause. "No, but there is someone here who wants to speak with you." At 9:28, Malcolm wiped his hands on a shop towel, left the mechanical room, and walked toward Principal Rebecca Cole's office with a question he could not quite shake. He had replayed the previous night twice already. The block dial. The donor in the expensive suit. His comment about the building. Nothing seemed serious enough to earn a Friday morning meeting. But experience had taught Malcolm that people did not always complain while they were standing in front of you. Rebecca's door was open. "Come in, Malcolm." He stepped inside and stopped. Evelyn was waiting beside the conference table. Cream-colored suit. Hair pulled back. Laptop open. The warmth from the night before was still there, but now it sat beneath something sharper. Authority. 2 words on the presentation screen caught Malcolm's eye. Evelyn Parker, Chief Executive Officer. Beneath her name was the blue logo he had seen on the sponsor banner. Parker Community Health. Malcolm looked at the screen again, then at Evelyn. "So that is why everybody kept trying to shake your hand." Rebecca covered a smile. Evelyn did not. "Eventually, yes." Malcolm pulled out a chair and Saturday. "Did I say something last night that is going to get me fired?" "No," Evelyn said. "You said something I could not stop thinking about." She turned the laptop toward him. A floor plan filled the screen. Reception area, waiting room, hallways, meeting spaces. "This is our new West Side Community Clinic. It opens in 6 weeks." Malcolm studied the drawing, then looked back at her. "All right. Last night, you noticed problems in a room you had never designed and were not responsible for. That is part of working facilities. You notice what gets in people's way." Evelyn nodded. "That is why I asked Rebecca to call you." Malcolm leaned back slightly. "If you are asking me to certify accessibility, I cannot do that." Evelyn answered immediately. "I am not." That surprised him more than her title had. "We have an independent accessibility consultant. We also have people who will actually use the clinic participating in the review. I want you there as a facilities advisor. Nothing more." Malcolm glanced at Rebecca. She gave him a small nod. Evelyn continued. "1 walkthrough. Paid at the proper consulting rate through the school district. No favors." "Why me?" Malcolm asked. She was quiet for a moment. "Because you noticed those things before you knew who I was." The room settled around that sentence. Malcolm looked down at the floor plan. He did not suddenly sit straighter because she was a chief executive. He did not apologize for what he had said. But he did understand something now. Evelyn had not spent last night collecting compliments from donors. She had been listening. "Monday," he asked. 9 in the morning. "I have to clear it with my supervisor." Rebecca spoke from behind her desk. "Already approved if you choose to do it." Malcolm gave her a look. "You two planned this." "We prepared," Evelyn said. "There is a difference." That earned the smallest smile from him. He closed the laptop gently and slid it back toward her. "Send me the address." Evelyn held his gaze. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet." Monday morning, Malcolm would walk into a nearly finished clinic expecting to point out a few practical problems. What he would find instead was a building full of small decisions that had quietly been telling people where they belonged. Monday morning, Malcolm arrived at the West Side Community Clinic 10 minutes early and found Evelyn waiting near the reception area with 2 people he had never met. "Malcolm, this is Dr. Naomi Brooks, our accessibility consultant, and Daniel Ross, our operations lead." Naomi offered her hand. "I have heard you notice things people miss." Malcolm shook it. "I notice what breaks." Daniel gave a tired smile. "Then you are going to have a busy morning." The clinic was nearly finished. Fresh paint, new furniture, clean floors. Everything looked polished until they started moving through it slowly. Naomi tested door pressure with a gauge. Malcolm watched the hinges and closer mechanisms. A wheelchair user from the community tried the reception counter and could not comfortably see the staff member seated behind it. A parent with a child using a walker pointed out a sharp turn near the waiting area. Malcolm said little unless the problem crossed into something he understood. "That door closer is fighting everybody," he said once. Naomi checked it. "You are right. It needs adjustment." Later, Malcolm stopped outside a meeting room. The room technically had accessible seating, but the open space was placed at the far end of the table, several feet from everyone else. Evelyn rolled into the spot and looked around. The distance was subtle. That made it worse. Daniel exhaled through his nose. "The room meets code." Naomi folded her arms. "Code is the floor, not the ceiling." Malcolm looked at the empty space around Evelyn. "It probably works on paper." Daniel glanced at him. "Meaning?" Malcolm kept his voice even. "Compliance asks whether someone can get inside. Hospitality asks whether they still feel part of the room once they are there." No one applauded. No one needed to. Naomi nodded once. Daniel looked back at the floor plan. Evelyn stayed quiet for several seconds, then asked, "What can we fix without moving the opening date?" That changed the conversation. By noon, the list had 3 columns. Must fix. Should fix. Later improvement. Heavy doors moved to the first column. Reception changes joined them. Furniture. Layout came next. Decorative wall panels were delayed to free part of the budget. Evelyn made the call, not Malcolm. He simply watched her choose function over appearance. Over the next 4 weeks, Malcolm returned several times after his regular shift. Naomi handled accessibility standards. Daniel handled contractors and costs. Malcolm focused on practical building issues. Somewhere between measurements, coffee, and marked-up floor plans, Evelyn stopped introducing him as the school facilities technician and started saying, "Malcolm sees how people actually move through a building." He noticed the change. He never mentioned it. One Thursday afternoon, a review meeting ran late. Evelyn looked at the clock. "We can finish this in 20 minutes. Malcolm was already closing his notebook. "I have to pick up Lily. I can arrange a car." "That is kind of you. But I told her I would be there." Evelyn studied him. "The meeting is important." Malcolm slipped on his jacket. "So is she." He paused at the door. "A promise does not become optional because someone important is in the room." Evelyn watched him leave, and something in her expression softened. By then, she trusted him enough to believe he would always tell her the truth. She did not yet know that someone inside her own company was about to turn the very reason she trusted him into a marketing idea. 5 weeks after the fundraiser, Malcolm arrived at Parker Community Health early and heard his own name through a half-open conference room door. He slowed. A presentation glowed on the wall inside. 3 members of the communications team sat around the table, talking through ideas for the clinic opening. Malcolm was about to keep walking when the slide changed. He stopped. Across the screen was a photograph from the school fundraiser. Evelyn sat beside Lily. Malcolm was in the background, coffee cup in one hand, turning toward them. Above the image were 6 words, "The seat that changed everything." "It gives the campaign a human story," someone said. "Powerful executive meets a hard-working single father. It shows what inclusion looks like." Another voice answered, "And the daughter makes it warmer." Malcolm felt his jaw tighten. Lily. That was the part that landed hardest. He remembered the photographer moving through the fundraiser. Wide shots, candid pictures. He had known photographs were being taken. What he had never agreed to was having his daughter turned into a corporate message. He stepped away before anyone saw him. 20 minutes later, Evelyn arrived for their scheduled review and found his notebook on the conference table. Malcolm was standing by the window. "You are early," she said. He looked at her. "So was your communications team." Something in his voice made her stop. "What happened?" "I saw the campaign." Evelyn frowned. "What campaign?" Malcolm watched her face carefully. She genuinely did not know. It softened his anger, but not enough to erase it. "The photograph from Northbridge." "Me." "Lily." "You." "They want to build the clinic story around it." Evelyn went still. "I did not approve that." "Maybe not." Malcolm picked up his notebook. "But your company made it." She drew a slow breath. "Malcolm, I will handle it." "I believe you." That answer surprised her. Then he added, "But I am done after the work I already promised Naomi." Evelyn's hands rested on the rims of her chair. "Because of me?" "Because Lily is 10. His voice stayed quiet. "I want her to learn that kindness matters even when nobody is watching. I do not want her learning that the reward for doing something decent is having somebody package it and sell the feeling." Evelyn looked down for a moment. No defense came. No explanation. "You are right," she said. Malcolm had expected resistance. Somehow, the simple admission made leaving harder. He nodded once and walked out. Evelyn went straight into the conference room. The campaign was canceled that afternoon. She ordered every image of Malcolm and Lily removed from promotional material. Then she changed the approval process so personal stories could not be used in corporate campaigns without specific consent from the people involved. She did not call Malcolm again that day. She knew an apology could become another way of asking him to make her feel better. 3 days later, his phone lit up with an email from her. It contained only 4 lines. "I fixed what I should have prevented. You do not owe me forgiveness. Thank you for telling me the truth. Evelyn." Malcolm read it once. Then again. He did not reply. But when he opened his calendar that evening, he saw the final clinic accessibility review scheduled for the following week. Naomi had invited him weeks ago. Malcolm stared at the appointment for a long moment. Then, instead of deleting it, he left it exactly where it was. The following Tuesday, Malcolm walked into the clinic carrying the same notebook he had nearly decided to leave at home. Naomi saw him first. She did not smile too quickly or ask whether he had changed his mind about Evelyn. She simply handed him a checklist. We are starting with the front entrance. Malcolm nodded. All right. Evelyn was already near reception, speaking with Daniel. When she noticed Malcolm, her hands went still on the rims of her wheelchair. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she gave him a small nod. Malcolm returned it. That was enough. The review took almost 3 hours. The heavy doors had been adjusted. The reception counter now had a lower section. Furniture had been moved so no one was pushed to the edge of a meeting room. Naomi caught 2 problems Malcolm had missed. Malcolm caught a ventilation issue near an automatic door sensor. Daniel complained about the remaining budget, but he still wrote everything down. No one treated Malcolm like the man who had inspired a campaign. He was simply part of the work again. Evelyn had made sure of that. At the end, Naomi closed her folder. This is better. Daniel looked around the lobby. Better enough? Naomi smiled. Ask the people using it next week. Malcolm liked that answer. So did Evelyn. The clinic opened on schedule. At the small community open house, Lily came with Malcolm and immediately inspected the dessert table. Please tell me these are not from the same people. Evelyn looked at the cheesecake slices. I personally objected. Lily narrowed her eyes. Professionally, deeply personally. Malcolm laughed before he could stop himself. The sound eased something between him and Evelyn that had been tight for days. They did not pretend the problem had never happened. They simply stopped making every conversation about it. Over the next several weeks, work gave way to coffee. Coffee became lunch. Sometimes Lily joined them. Sometimes she did not. Evelyn never tried to buy Malcolm more time than he had. Malcolm never treated Evelyn like every inconvenience required his hands. One evening, at a quiet cafe near the school, Evelyn told him why that mattered. After my accident, people started doing things before asking. Moving my chair. Taking over. Telling me I was brave for going to work. She looked down at her coffee. Some days I wanted to say something ordinary and annoying without somebody turning it into inspiration. Malcolm smiled. I can support ordinary and annoying. She laughed, then noticed he had not said he understood. You are not going to tell me you know exactly how that feels. I do not. His thumb rested against the edge of his cup. But I know what it is like to think helping gives you the right to make every decision. Evelyn waited. Malcolm took a breath. When my wife Rachel got sick, I tried to manage everything. Appointments, meals, medication. I thought control was care. His voice lowered. One day she told me helping her was not the same as deciding for her. Evelyn said nothing for a moment. She did not offer sympathy he had not asked for. She only asked, how long ago? 6 years. And Lily? 4 at the time. Evelyn nodded slowly. The silence between them felt different now. Not empty. Trusted. A month later, after another coffee that had somehow lasted 2 hours, Evelyn looked at him across the table. Are you ever going to ask me on an actual date? Malcolm raised an eyebrow. I thought this was one. You bought coffee. You ordered fries. That does not make it dinner. He smiled. All right. Evelyn Parker, would you have dinner with me Friday? She pretended to consider it. Only if there is no cheesecake. Deal. Her smile stayed with him all the way home, and for the first time, Malcolm realized he was no longer making room for Evelyn out of kindness. He wanted her there. 1 year later, Malcolm walked into the same school fundraiser and noticed the room before he noticed the people. The aisles were wider now. The wheelchair spaces were built into the table layout instead of added at the edge. The ramp to the stage came from the main floor, not from behind a curtain. Even the signs had been lowered where more people could read them comfortably. Nothing looked dramatic. That was the point. Lily, now 11, was already studying the dessert table with serious concern. They brought cheesecake again. Malcolm glanced at her. Try not to start a legal case. No promises. Across the room, Evelyn was speaking with Rebecca Cole near the stage. She wore a dark blue suit and had her hair tied back loosely. When she saw Malcolm, her expression changed in that small way he had learned to recognize. Not brighter exactly. Softer. Familiar. They had been dating for months now, slowly enough that neither of them could name the exact day it stopped feeling new. There had been dinners, school events, quiet Sunday coffees, a few arguments, apologies that did not ask to be rewarded. Lily had stopped treating Evelyn like a guest and started saving her a place without being told. When Evelyn reached the microphone, the room settled. She spoke for less than 2 minutes. No dramatic story. No mention of how she and Malcolm had met. No picture of him on a screen. Accessibility is not generosity, she said. It is respect designed into a room before anyone has to ask for it. Malcolm looked around. Naomi Brooks stood near the back beside several community members who had helped review the clinic. Daniel Ross was talking with a contractor near the entrance. The changes had not come from one person. That mattered. After the applause faded, Malcolm helped Lily find her coat. Evelyn rolled toward the table where they had first sat together. There was an open space beside Malcolm. She looked at it, then at him. Still have room. Malcolm smiled. For a second, he remembered her standing alone beside the block table a year earlier. The bags, the glances, the way everyone had been looking around her. He moved his coffee cup a little farther in. Saved you a place. Evelyn guided herself into the space. Malcolm did not. Reach for her chair. He never did unless she asked. Lily returned with a plate and pointed at the dessert. Do not eat the cheesecake. Evelyn looked at Malcolm. Some things never improve. Give it another year. She rested her hand on the table. Malcolm placed his beside it. Their fingers touched, then stayed there. No one in the room noticed. That, somehow, made the moment feel complete. Maybe that is the real lesson in a story like this. Respect is not loud. Love is not rescue. Kindness does not become more valuable because the person receiving it has money, status, or power. Malcolm made room before he knew anything about Evelyn, and Evelyn learned that making room also meant listening, asking, and changing what needed to change. I think people remember how we make them feel seen long after they forget what we said. What do you think matters more, helping someone or knowing how to help without taking away their dignity? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this stay with you, subscribe and join us for the next one. Kindness is a quiet revolution.